This Christmas, I received a new storybook, and the storybook was called Christmas in Idaho. And sometimes people send me books to review, and I got to interview the author, and I said to him, "It's a beautiful book. Why did you write it?" And he said, "Well, during Christmas time, we're celebrating all these different things of decorating." And he said, "I just wanted to bring the idea of what Christmas is really about." And so the story is about this snowman. And it begins with a very nostalgic scene, probably something that all of us have been doing, decorating the house for the holidays, having family over, cooking together, celebrating, lighting the fire in the fireplace. All of these beautiful things are taking place. And so it's Christmas Eve, and these little children are celebrating Christmas, and they go out and they build a snowman. And after they build the snowman, they go back inside to play, and they have dinner together. And while they're celebrating dinner together, the snowman who is outside comes to life. And he looks inside the family, and he sees the family coming together. And he has this feeling in his heart, which is like, I wish I could be in there. I wish I could be with them. And so after the children go to bed and the parents, everybody goes to sleep, and the house is all still, the snowman decides he's going to go into the house. And so he goes into the house, and he sits by the fireplace, and he sees a book on the coffee table, and he opens it up, and it's a storybook about Frosty the Snowman. And as he's reading the book, he gets to the end of the book, and he realizes that in the end, Frosty melts and dies. And that's the end of the story. And so he's really sad because he thinks, oh my gosh, I'm a snowman. At some point, I'm going to melt and die. And so he's very sad, and he leaves the house, and there's just a beautiful scene where he's going through these woods, and he's walking through these beautiful pine trees in the snow, and it's dark, and so he begins to get lost. And then he starts to get scared, and he thinks again, I'm going to die. I'm going to melt away when the spring comes. And all of a sudden he hears bells ringing in the distance, church bells. And as he hears these bells ring, he feels this feeling inside of him that just feels so good and so joyful. And so he starts to follow the sound of these bells. And as he's walking through the clear of the woods, he sees over the treetops a chapel. And it's the bell of the church. And he looks at it, and he hears the bells ringing, and he sees the light of the church, and he decides that he's going to walk into the church. And so the snowman begins to walk into the church, and he sees just how beautiful it is. And as he's walking into the church, he sees a manger. And he decides, I'm going to walk up and see just what is in this manger. When he gets to the manger, he's so blown away, he can't believe what is there. Mary and Joseph and this tiny little figure carved in the tree, and he's so filled with awe that he kneels down. And he looks at the manger, and he's blown away by the beauty of Jesus. And he thinks about this child, and he thinks, what will happen to this child? And as he looks up from the manger, he sees the cross. And he realizes this child, this little child, who was so innocent and so pure, would someday be crucified, would suffer, and would die. And just like him, he would melt away. And as he was pondering the beauty of the nativity scene and of the cross, all of a sudden there was a very bright light shining from the side of the church. And so the snowman walked over to the side of the church, and as he was walking over there, only he could see this. There was a figure, and it was Jesus. And he opened his arms, and he wrapped himself around Jesus, and Jesus hugged him, and he melted away into Jesus. And before you know it, the snowman was gone. Wasn't that really impressive? Come on. He melted away into Jesus, and the two of them became one. All of you are here tonight for different reasons. Now, I don't know what brought each and every one of you here, but you heard something. You either heard the church bells or the angels invited you, or maybe it was your parents that said, please go to Mass with me this Christmas. But whatever it was, you were brought here to see this manger and to look at this child who is born for us. And for so much of our lives, we're lost. We're walking around in the woods. And I hope at least at one point in your life you've questioned your own mortality and thought, what's going to happen to me? Right here at this altar today on Christmas, Christ will be born. We heard in the first reading that people who have walked in darkness, who have seen a great light. We hear in the gospel that Mary and Joseph brought the child Jesus and laid him in a manger. A manger was a trough where animals were fed. So Jesus right now is born in a manger. He's born this evening on the altar for you and for me, so that we may eat of his very body and blood, his very soul and divinity, that we may know in the depths of our hearts that we are never alone. And if we know this, if we believe this, if we walk our lives with him, we will suffer. But he's with you in the suffering. We will die, but he's with you in the dying. And we will rise. There's only two things in this life that we cannot do. You cannot conquer sin. So there's probably some sin in your life that you can't get a hang of. Only he can conquer sin. The second, you cannot rise yourself from the dead. Only he can do that. And we come here together and we celebrate because Jesus tonight will be born on this altar. This is the Nativity. This is that moment where he is born on the altar and we receive him. And very much like the snowman, as we receive him, we will become one with him. We will melt into him. He will become us, and we will become him. And if we have suffered with him in this life, if we have died with him in this life, we will rise with him in this life. And so let us remember this beautiful story of what Christmas is really about. This child Jesus who is born in a manger so that you may no longer have to fear death. You may no longer have to fear sin. And we may all know that if we eat and drink of him, we may one day rise to eternal life. And so tonight we can rejoice and celebrate that this truly indeed is a very merry Christmas.